Hi, my name is Baily Rossi, and I'm applying to Seattle University's MIT program for a single subject credential in English literature. To address question 1, identify one of your interpersonal strengths and one of your interpersonal challenges. An interpersonal strength of mine is that I relate to a lot of people on a very deep level. I have a lot of empathy. I know how to talk to people well, of a lot of backgrounds, variety. I can read conversations well as how people are receiving what I'm saying. Which I think is very good, especially in a classroom when dealing with so many individuals and their personalities and where they come from, and then bringing it into one group conversation. I think I would be great at facilitating that. And then an interpersonal challenge of mine is that I don't take criticism well. I actually can kind of tell when people aren't taking something well that I'm saying. I know as a young teacher I'm going to be stepping into a classroom and students might not right away click with me and get it and understand the way that I teach. But I think with experience, that'll definitely strengthen and get better. And how might these influence my work in a diverse school? I think my interpersonal strength, my ability to relate to a lot of people and talk to a wide variety of people, all people, is important in a diverse school because I want to bring students together. My biggest goal as a teacher is to have these open conversations where students are actually changing and understanding that their perspective isn't the only perspective, that there are so many people with different backgrounds, thoughts, ideas, religious beliefs, race. I mean, these things, yes, they separate us, they make us different, but at the same time, they can bring us together. We all have our differences. But if anything, I think it's a benefit for opening up better conversation. And then my interpersonal challenge, how I might work with that in a diverse school. I think my fear of being critiqued and people not necessarily engaging with what I'm saying, if a student is of a different background of me, of a different culture, I fear that maybe they think that I don't get it. But my goal as a teacher is to show them that I do. Maybe not exactly experience what they experience, but I care and that I have empathy for it and I want to hear about it and I want others to hear about it. Yeah. Hi, today we'll be discussing the article, High School Honors Classes, Elitist or Not, by Molly Walsh. So everyone read the article for today. Let's just talk about general feelings, opinions, how you reacted when you first read it, how you feel personally having been in high school. Brittany?
I really enjoyed reading this article. I thought that it's a really important issue to consider. I am actually a proponent of tracking just because I think it's important to let freshmen decide whether or not they want to start preparing themselves for the rigors of college and higher level classes. But I think it's a good thing that the school is reconsidering the policy and opening it up to students to hear what their thoughts are on the topic.
Bella, what do you think?
I agree with Brittany. I think that the article brought up some good points, and I also do agree that tracking would be good for students in coming to high school. I think that it's good to have different levels because students that are not as advanced can be with themselves, and then students that can be more challenged can be in honors classes.
Okay, so we have two proponents of tracking. So let's talk about some of the cons that were brought up in the article, specifically towards struggling students who might feel that they're being held back from achieving more or that they're being separated from their classmates. We had a student, Ali Batil, talk about how everyone at Not Honors didn't necessarily feel that they were as smart as other people, even though they're still going to college and doing things, as well as that if tracking was to be banned, that there would be a more supportive community around everyone and everyone would feel more able to reach out to one another and study with one another and learn together rather than being separated into classes. What do you think about that personally with your experience?
I do understand that certain students are going to feel ostracized because they aren't able to take the honors classes their freshman year, but I also think that it's something that instead of looking at it negatively, students can look at it as something to work towards.
Yeah.
If you can't take honors classes your freshman year or you're nervous about it, you can always consider taking it the next 3 years of high school. Or if that's not something that you even want to do, it's not something to be embarrassed about. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, and whether yours is academically in school is not something to be ashamed of.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think it is important to remember, though, that some students, you know, when you were in high school, having taken honors in AP, and I believe you the same as me as well, you see the same students over and over again. You know, it's the same students moving up and up and up, and there's that moment of, oh, what happened to the students that I met my freshman year that when I wasn't in honors or AP class, which I think is really interesting. Bella, what do you think about that? Those students that kind of fall behind and you might even lose contact with because you've moved into a different area and you feel like they're not with you.
I mean, some students might take honors or AP classes in certain subjects different from you. So, like, you might not see them in your classes, but there's also, like, other extracurricular classes that, like, don't really differentiate people based on their abilities, I guess. And also, like, I think that if you are... I have to stop. I don't know where I was going. I was literally going there.
Okay.
That's true. You have like PE and art classes, which are classes that a bunch of students can take together regardless of different levels and abilities.
Yeah.
And you also have like lunchtime and recess, and there's always a way to reestablish those connections if those friendships and classes that you had are something that you're worried about losing.
Yeah. I think it's important to think about freshman year as kind of this impactful time when you're meeting a lot of people, especially if you came from a smaller middle school or if you moved to high school. You're meeting people, you know, you're really getting in there. There's a lot of pressure to fit in, to do all these things. You know, if we were to eliminate honors classes specifically in the freshman classroom, do you think socially students would be able to branch out and be with each other more because they wouldn't feel so restricted by specific classes?
I definitely think that is something that would be good about not having honors classes, is that you would hang out with more people that you normally wouldn't. I think in honors classes you are very segregated because normally they are smaller classes and you see the same people a lot of times. I know that for me, like, I only had a select pool of friends to kind of pull from because I didn't branch out and meet people that weren't in honors classes, which is something I would have liked to do. I was kind of a quote-unquote nerd, and so I hung out with nerds, and I think that not having honor classes freshman year might get rid of some of those barriers and titles that are established.
Yeah. Bella, anything you want to add?
I think, again, that just because that you're in honors classes doesn't mean that you can't be friends with someone because they're not in honors classes. Like, in high school, I was in honors classes my freshman year, but I had friends that weren't in honors classes, and, like, we got along not because we were talking about our classes, but because of, like, our mutual interests and other things. So I don't think that having honors classes, like, really creates stratification.
Okay.
And I think it's important to consider, like you were saying, you had friends that weren't in honors classes. Like, a lot of people do feed into the same middle schools into high schools.
Yeah.
So you come with friends. And because you had those friends in middle school, you're not going to lose them your freshman year just because you're in different classes.
Well, and that might add to the sense of motivation, you know, motivating each other. Yeah, I agree with that. I understand that. So let's move into a pro that I think has really been brought up of tracking, that it kind of gets rid of that middle tier issue, that issue of, for students and teachers, students that feel that they are a higher level in a certain subject and that they are being asked to be brought down and that they're kind of feeling like their abilities aren't being brought out. And then students that feel like they have to walk up to a certain level because they have students that are in a higher level, as well as teachers feeling like they kind of have to reach out to both sides, which is always difficult, especially if there's students that kind of feel like they're bigger than a class. What do you guys think about that, the idea of the middle tier?
I think that you do get pushed down if you are a smarter student in a class that's being taught to a lower level. And it can also have the impact of making you not want to try harder because you're not going to be challenged.
Okay. Bella, any thoughts?
I agree.
Okay. Wonderful. So just kind of ending the idea, obviously this is not an answered conversation, this is just open discussion. Do you think that honors classes are helpful or harmful to a student?
I think they're helpful if you let the student choose whether or not they want to be in the honors classes instead of saying, you're in honors, you're not in honors. Like, if they feel that they have the ability to be challenged and put into honors classes, they should do it.
Yeah. Brittany?
I agree. I think that high school is a very important coming of age, and you should give students the choice about whether they want to take those classes, because I know that there are students that go into high school thinking about college, and I think that having those honors classes on your application, even starting in your freshman year, can be helpful in getting you into the schools that you want to.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think honors classes are helpful in motivating students and for them to think more broadly, to think critically, especially if students are interested immediately. Like, I want to go to college, that's something I want. Having that as a freshman kind of motivates you to keep going and moving up to different levels, to different challenges. But we do, I think, have to acknowledge that it can be harmful for some students, particularly any kind of stereotyped student or prejudice that happens against students of different race, minority. Do you think this is harmful for them? Do you think it holds them back? Do you think that you found that in honors classes, students of color or of different backgrounds don't feel as motivated?
I definitely think that there is maybe less minority in the lesser or the lower education classes, but I don't know that that's because they are stereotyped into those classes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have to consider where high schools are located. Demographics vary greatly, and you might live in a city and have a high school that doesn't have as much diversity as you would in different areas. And I know that I had a lot of diversity in my honors classes, but I know that some communities don't, and I don't know that that's because students are stereotyped into those classes, but more so because they come from a community that isn't as diverse to begin with.
Yeah, that is something that has to be taken into consideration, of course.
I never felt like I was an outsider in any of my honors classes. I felt like there were a lot of people of color in my classes, or not of color. And I just think that it was based on like our own abilities to do well in that class rather than like who we are, what we look like.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Mm-hmm. So in regards to just the topic, of course, there's no answer. But in retrospect, thinking about the article that we've read, you think honors classes, specifically in the freshman year of high school, can be very helpful for students, more than harmful.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I think we had a really nice discussion, especially talking about and addressing students of specific races and minorities, how they do have the opportunities to go to join these classes, and if they don't, they should, which I think is really important to acknowledge, that they should be promoted, and that if we are going to keep honors classes in freshman classrooms, all students should be promoted to continue in honors or to join honors, or even if they decide not to take honors, to continue. And I think that's something that happens in the classroom with teachers and students helping each other. Yeah, good discussion, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.